everyone, I'm Lauren and welcome back to my channel. This is Lighting Lavender, where we talk about all things books on my own writing journey, and today I've got my August and September wrap up for you. So the past couple of months have been a little bit hectic. I am currently in the process of trying to release my first book in, well, a week or so by the time this video goes up, and I didn't have much chance to film in August and September, and I've not had much chance to film in October yet. So today's video is a combination of both my August and September wrap up, which is nice because it features 6 books instead of just 3 in each of them. Overall, I had alright reading months, but I will split them into the 2 parts because I did actually plan to do 2 separate videos, and all of my notes are planned for both of them. So I'll go through August and then I'll go through September. In August I managed to read 3 books. 1 of them was fiction and 2 of them were non-fiction. 2 of them were also library books and 1 was also a book that I owned. It was an okay reading month in total. I had an average of 3.8 stars, which is a pretty decent month, to be honest, to say that 2 of these books were non-fiction, because I don't usually rate them that highly. August was a strange month. I didn't get much time to just sit and read. I was trying to write a book as well as edit a book, and it proved to be a lot more difficult than I thought it would be around a 9-to-5 job. The first book that I read in August was actually an audiobook that I borrowed from my library, and that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This was the first book of V.E. Schwab's that I have ever read/listened to, and when people have said that the prose in this is beautiful, I didn't actually believe them. I was like, okay, the prose is probably going to be somewhat good, but I was blown away. I don't know if it would class fully as purple prose, but my god, the way with words that woman has is just mind-blowing. I thought it was delicate, it was gut-punching, it wove the story and the setting of the book so well, and everything was just like so beautifully, honest, I'm just in awe. Despite how much I actually love the book, I only gave this 4.5 stars, mainly because of the character of Luke. Luke is the demon that Addie pretty much sells her soul to right at the start of the book, and I feel like there could have been more done with him, and I felt like there was more of a story with this character than we got on the page. I kind of wish we had that little extra story because I'm so intrigued by the way that it ended and the way this character sort of developed on the page. It was almost like this was I want to say godlike figure, in the sense that it was someone that she was able to sell her soul to, and he clearly had some sort of incorporeal, unearthly sort of origin, and I really wanted to know more about that, especially with how the character progressed through this book with the snippets. However, that was the only issue I pretty much had with this book. Everything else was just done wonderfully. I loved the way that Addie's character was developed. I loved the way that the story was told in the sort of time jump periods. I really enjoyed that. I loved the back and forth that we were getting from Addie's current life compared to how she started out this journey and how she became Addie LaRue, and honestly just wonderful. I would 100% recommend this to everyone. Like I said, it's only knocked down a few stars, well, half a star, because I just wanted to know more about Luke, and I'm really intrigued by that. And if V.E. Schwab wants to do a novella just about this character, I would just read that, if it was just like just him. I just need to know more. The second book that I read in August was Copywriting and Proofreading for Dummies. I picked this one up from the library last year in 2020, but it took a while to get through. I picked it up because I wanted to try and get more of an understanding of how to edit a book and also to do proofreading. I thought it would be more beneficial as sort of like a self-help tool, but it was more of a book of if you want to become a copy editor or a proofreader. It went a lot more into the physical side, so if you've been physically given a book to go through and make notes on, rather than the online version that I've received from my editors this year. So the notes that were made were not quite what would be used anymore. I think it would be a really good book if you were going into the profession, but for me it helped a bit with some of the areas and some of the ideas that I needed, but wasn't sort of like a full-on understanding of everything that I wanted. so I only gave this 3 stars. I do think it was a good book. There were some areas that I skipped over because it was more about the exercise of getting into being a copy editor and a proofreader, and I wasn't really interested in those, so there were big chunks of the book that I skipped through. But that's life. When you read non-fiction, sometimes you get a bit that you don't really care about. It's not something that's relevant to the information that you're trying to find. The third and final book that I read in August was the Well-Presented Manuscript by Mike McMillan Reeves. I can't get my tongue around that name. I gave this one 4 stars. Despite this being a non-fiction, I feel like this was a really high rating for me for a non-fiction book. This was, again, another way to make sure that my writing is as polished as I can make it on my own, and it went through a lot of the grammar issues. I think I need to refresh part of it though, because apparently I don't know how to use a comma. I thought that I'd kind of like got this bit down, but there's still quite a lot of areas that I need to work on to make sure that my comma usage is of the area that it needs to be. But I really liked the writing style. I loved the voice of this book. I thought that it was done in a really... It was done in a professional way, but also in a friendly way, so I didn't feel like I was being preached at. It was done to be like, look, these are the issues I've found. It's happened in traditional books, it's happened in self-published books. These are errors that everyone makes. Just try and figure out how to avoid them. It also gives extra resources to further your learning and to further clarify certain grammatical errors, and I really enjoyed that. So I think I will definitely be giving it another reread, as this is the one that I own, so I can get back to the comma section quite easily, because I thought I had taken in those lessons, but clearly I have not. In September, I only read 3 books as well, but this was a slightly worse month as I only had 3.5 stars as my average rating. They were all fiction books, so it was a little bit disappointing, but I kind of had books on both ends of the scales, so yeah, it was an interesting month. So let's get through all the books that I read. The first book that I read in September was The Treason of Robyn Hood by Dee Leiber, and I gave this 2 stars. If you have seen any of my reviews online anywhere, you will see that I really disliked this book, and the more I think about it, the more I feel like I should drop that 2 down to a 1. But I did like some elements, so I don't really want to do that. But it was so frustrating. This was a Robyn Hood retelling where the story of Robyn Hood had literally been picked up from Sherwood Forest in the sort of 1200s. I'm trying to remember when King John was around. Late 1100s, 1200s, and plunked into a 1942 setting in America somewhere. I thought that would be great. I honestly thought that this was going to be a really interesting story. I was so excited to read it. I wanted to see what they'd done for it, but it was literally that story transposed and moved across. And I didn't realise that was going to happen until Robyn ends up stumbling into Sherwood, which is a Hooverville in America, and she tries to cross a bridge, and some giant on the bridge challenges her to a battle with staffs, which is literally how Robyn Hood meets Little John in the original like sort of stories, or at least not if the original, the most well-known and most spoken about stories. I thought it was lazy, is the simplest way to describe this. It was a really lazy retelling. There wasn't a lot of imagination into it. It was... Okay, that was a bit harsh. You could tell that there'd been some thought put into this to move it across, but the overall idea was just really lazy. We'd got Robyn Hood, who was no longer a man but a woman, and she seemed... Oh, I don't know how to describe her, but pretty much every male character seemed to be in love with her, and there was an insta-love romance, and I didn't get that, and I think the insta-love romance annoyed me more than anything, because it was very much a case of this guy walks into a bar, they have a darts match, and then they're sleeping together, and she's got these feelings for him, and he feels like he's falling for her, and I don't know, it was just really wound me up the wrong way. It mentioned about dieselpunk as one of like the main areas of this story, and I was excited to see how dieselpunk would transform itself, because obviously we've got the steampunk stories. The only thing I could see was the fact that there were cars, which in 1942 there would be, but there was also this hoverboard game, and that is literally the only mention or like hint that this could be dieselpunk, is that this hoverboard game is run by like diesel engines. But this game has no bearing on the plot. It's like plonked into the middle of it for no reason. I remember reading it and going, okay, so what they're gonna do with these hoverboards, and then it's never brought up again. Like, never. It's just, I didn't get its point in the story. And then there's the ending. The ending was rushed. I thought the ending was rushed because this was traditionally published, because I received this book from NetGalley. And after looking into the author, it turns out it's not traditionally published, despite what they're trying to claim on their publishing website. The author has set up her own publishing company and published this book through her own publishing company, because she doesn't think that self-published writers have a good reputation. And I don't think she's helping them, because this ending was appalling. It was set up to be this big thing, and then it was like over and done in seconds. I don't want to go into it for spoilers, but I'd also not recommend this book to anyone. But I also don't want to spoil it in case anyone is intrigued by what this book is about. But yeah, it's... I kept waiting for this big thing to happen, and it was like, okay, they're setting this up. Oh, there's only 20% left. They carry on setting it up. They've got all this. There's this coming in. There's this thread. Oh, I wonder how they're going to finish it. There's like 10% left of the book. Oh my god, it's about to happen. There's like 4% left. What's happening? And then that was it. It was just, it happened, and then there was no like sort of rounding out of the story. It's almost like the author lost steam and just didn't know how to finish the book, to be honest. Which I get, because I've struggled to finish a book, but I just, I really didn't like it, and I thought it was really disappointing. There were some areas that I liked. I liked the setting, I liked the introduction of this hoverboard game, even though it did nothing else with it. There were some areas where you could see that the author was trying to make it their own, but overall, I think the execution of it failed, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to pretty much anyone, to be honest. If you feel like you're intrigued to read this, I would not stop you, but I would warn you and give you a caveat that the ending of this is not an ending at all. So just be prepared, if you do read this, that you may be slightly dissatisfied with the ending of the book. The second book that I read in September was Dead Boy's Game and the Broken Vow by A. David Singh. I received this book for free in exchange for an honest review. I gave this book 3.75 stars. I did really enjoy this book, but I felt that there was too much setup and not enough plot in this book. I think because this is the start of a series, it was trying to give the background information to a lot of the points, which meant that the action didn't happen until quite late on in the book, so it was a little bit of I'd say a slumpy middle. It started off really well, the middle kind of faltered a little bit, and the ending was really good. I'm excited to see where this series goes, so I'll be looking to pick up the rest of the books in the series at some point, but there's also going to be a full review on my channel when I get the chance to film it. Hopefully it will be up before the end of October, but my filming has not been going so great, so I'm not gonna hold myself to any promises, but yeah, I'm gonna do a full review of this book, and when I do, I'll leave a link up above for you to go and watch that. But yeah, I did enjoy the book. I thought it was done really well. It was definitely sort of like a Men of Rome, I want to say Men of Rome. Men of Rome by Colleen McCulloch, I think it is, with like a fantasy magical twist to it, so I did really enjoy it, and I loved the setting of it. I just felt like it floundered a little bit in the middle of the book, which was why it brought itself down, but yeah, 3.75 stars, not bad, but yeah, I think if it had tightened up that middle, it would have been so much more fun. And the final book that I read in September was Defy The Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I think this is actually my new favourite book of the year. I did read this as an ARC from NetGalley, but the day after I finished it, I got my Fairy Loot box, which was this book. I realised that this is actually the paperback cover, and the reason this is like a Fairy Loot special is because we've not got hardcover in the UK, which is really strange, but I do love it, and I love the holographic shininess, so if I'm doing this in the video, it's because I'm just enjoying watching it flash on my screen. Again, I don't really want to go into this too much because I don't want to spoil it, but oh my god, I'm in love. I have read a couple of bad reviews of this book, and a lot of people are saying that they can't remember any of the storyline once they've finished reading the book, but I can remember so much, but I'm still so invested in this world. It's been like a month since I read it, but I really enjoyed the book. this is also a Robin Hood retelling, but this is a Robin Hood retelling that's been done right. This has taken the story and made it its own. So we have two main characters. We have Tessa, who is an apothecary, or at least an apothecary's daughter, and she is stealing the moonflower petals from the rich to distribute among the poor in the form of an elixir. There is a plague, fever, virus running through the land, which can only be cured with this elixir based from the moonflower petals, but it's only grown in 2 areas of the kingdom, which means that it's very valuable, so poor people cannot afford it. Tessa goes around doing this every night. She has a friend called Weston who is helping her do this, but then quite early on something bad happens to him and she ends up finding herself inside the palace one day, potentially on her way to do harm. And the other main character is Prince Coric, who is the king's justice, and he pretty much punishes all the people doing the stealing, and they end up having to work together. And I just loved the story. I loved the way that the characters were done. Oh my god, Prince Coric is meant to be like the Sheriff of Nottingham in there. Revelations in the middle of a wrap-up. But I really liked the way this was done. I love the story. I'm so excited this is the start of a series because I just want to be in this world more. I just need to be immersed in it, and I just loved it so much. 5 stars, would recommend. Will shout about this book probably for a really long time, and I'm so glad that I have this copy because it is just so beautiful and I just love the shiny, shiny, shiny. So those were my 6 books that I managed to read through August and September. So far in October I'm doing okay with reading, but also slightly stressed with trying to release a book, which I will leave a link to the pre-order link if you want to buy a copy of my book, because it's going to be out before the end of the month and I'm so excited. And I've got my first review back and it was really good, and I'm still facing imposter syndrome. But that was my wrap up. Maybe in October I will be able to get, well, maybe I'll be able to get October's wrap up done a little bit more in time next month, rather than leaving 2 months in one go. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you're intrigued by any of the books that I've mentioned. I'll be leaving a list of all the books in the description down below, just in case you can't remember the titles, because I know that's what I do with people's videos. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a like, and if you want to see more of my videos, don't forget to hit subscribe. There's a new one out every single week. I hope you're well and you're all staying safe, and until next time, bye!